The Indomitable floated in space, battered beyond recognition. Over 60% of its armor plating was gone, exposing the skeletal framework beneath. Multiple sections were open to vacuum, their contents drifting away into the void. Scorch marks and impact craters covered every surface. The massive carrier looked like it had been through a war, which of course it had. Admiral Hyunwoo walked through the damaged corridors, his boots crunching on debris. Emergency lights provided dim illumination. Repair crews worked frantically to seal breaches and restore critical systems. The air smelled of burnt metal and recycled oxygen. He stopped at a viewing port and looked out at the fleet. The Council ships were also damaged, but far less severely than his vessel. They had learned quickly, adapted their tactics, and survived. But the Indomitable had paid the highest price. Lieutenant Hana found him there. Her uniform was torn and stained, her face showing exhaustion. "Sir, final casualty count is ready. 347 dead. Another 600 wounded, 92 critically." Hyunwoo felt each number like a physical blow. "Compile the names. I'll write to every family personally." "Yes, sir." She paused, then added quietly, "We held. Against everything we held." "Yes. We did." 3 days after the battle, High Magistrate Velthara convened an emergency session of the Galactic Council. This time, the meeting was held aboard Nexus Station's largest assembly hall. Every major species sent representatives. The chamber was packed. Admiral Hyunwoo entered wearing his dress uniform. The medals on his chest seemed inadequate for what his crew had accomplished. Ambassador Minji walked beside him, and Commander Daehyun followed behind. They were escorted to a position of honor near the center of the chamber. The whispers started immediately. Every delegate had seen the battle recordings. Every species now knew what the human carrier had done. Velthara's crystalline form pulsed with light as she called for silence. "We gather today to discuss the recent engagement with the Void Swarm. For the first time in our conflict with this enemy, we achieved a decisive victory." They retreated. They withdrew from the field of battle. She paused, letting the magnitude of that statement sink in. This victory was achieved largely through the actions of one vessel, the human supercarrier Indomitable, which we initially dismissed as primitive and obsolete, proved to be the key to our success. Captain Jihoon stood from his seat. He had requested permission to address the council, and Velthara granted it. "High Magistrate, with your permission, I would like to ask the human commander a question." He turned to face Hyunwoo directly. "Admiral, we must know how. Our sensors showed your technology was centuries behind council standards. Our analysis predicted your ship would be destroyed within minutes. Yet you not only survived but turned the tide of battle. Explain this to us." Hyunwoo stepped forward. He was not used to public speaking, but the question deserved an honest answer. "Captain Jihoon, you are correct that our technology is less advanced than yours. We don't have energy shields or quantum weapons or exotic matter reactors. But we have something else. We have redundancy, we have adaptability, and we have experience with failure." He gestured to a holographic display that appeared above the chamber floor, showing the Indomitable's design. "Your ships are built to operate perfectly. Every system is optimized. Every component is efficient. This is good design, but it makes you predictable. When the swarm learned to counter your energy shields, your ships became vulnerable. When they adapted to your plasma weapons, you lost your primary offensive capability." The display shifted, showing the multiple layers of armor, the redundant power systems, the diverse weapon loadouts. "We built the Indomitable differently. We assumed everything would go wrong. We assumed shields would fail, so we added armor. We assumed armor would be penetrated, so we added more layers. We assumed power systems would be damaged, so we created dozens of backup routes. Every critical system has 3 or 4 ways to function." Commander Daehyun spoke up. "The swarm adapts quickly to specific threats, but it struggles with variety. Our weapons are not elegant, but they are diverse. Railguns, missiles, kinetic projectiles, chemical explosives, even ramming attacks. Each one is different. Each one requires a different counter. We overloaded their ability to adapt by refusing to specialize." A Thalorian delegate stood. "But the casualties. Your ship lost nearly 20% of its crew. How can you call this a victory when the cost was so high?" Chief Engineer Taejin, who had been invited to the session, answered before Hyunwoo could. His voice was rough but sincere. "Because the alternative was losing everyone. You want to know how humans think? I'll tell you. We lost 300 people on that ship. It's terrible, it hurts, but we saved thousands on your ships. We saved millions in the colonies that would have been destroyed if the swarm advanced. So yes, the cost was high, but we paid it willingly because it was necessary. The chamber fell silent. The brutal calculus of war, something humans understood deeply, was foreign to species that had not fought a major conflict in centuries. Ambassador Minji took her turn to speak. Her voice was calm but carried an edge. The Galactic Council has advanced technology, beautiful ships, powerful weapons, but you've forgotten something important. You've forgotten what war really is. War is not elegant. It's not clean. It's not about having the best technology. War is about survival. It's about using everything you have, accepting losses you can bear, and refusing to quit until you win, or there's nothing left to fight with. She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of various delegates. You laughed at our ship. You called it primitive. You assigned us to the reserve line because you expected us to die quickly and buy you minutes of escape time. But we didn't die, we fought, and we taught you something your advanced civilization had forgotten. Sometimes the old ways persist because they work. Velthara's form pulsed with colors that suggested deep thought. Admiral Hyunwoo, Ambassador Minji, the Council owes you an apology. We underestimated humanity. We let our pride blind us to the value you could provide. We were wrong. It was unprecedented. The High Magistrate of the Galactic Council, apologizing to a species that had joined only years earlier. More than that, Velthara continued, we wish to make a proposal. The Council would like to integrate human military doctrine into our defense forces, not to replace our technology but to supplement it, to add your adaptability and resilience to our power and precision. Hyunwoo glanced at Minji, who gave a slight nod. The people of Earth would be honored to share what we know, Hyunwoo said. But understand, it's not just about technology. It's about mindset. It's about preparing for things to go wrong and fighting anyway. Over the following months, the integration began. Council ships started receiving modifications based on human designs. Physical armor plating was added beneath energy shields. Kinetic weapons were installed alongside energy batteries. Redundant systems were built into critical areas. Human military advisors worked with alien crews, teaching them lessons learned from centuries of human warfare. Not the glory and honor, but the ugly practical reality. How to keep fighting when your best systems fail. How to improvise weapons from whatever is available. How to accept necessary losses without losing the will to continue. The changes were not just technical. They were cultural. The Council species began to understand that survival sometimes required ugliness. That elegance was beautiful, but pragmatism was essential. 6 months after the battle, the Indomitable completed its repairs and upgrades. The ship now carried both human and alien technology. Armor plates made from advanced Council alloys. Railguns augmented with Valkyrie targeting systems. Redundant power cores using hybrid fusion exotic matter designs. Admiral Hyunwoo stood in the reconstructed CIC. Lieutenant Hana was at her station, promoted after her excellent service. A new wing commander led the fighter wings, carrying forward Soman's aggressive tactics. Chief Engineer Taejin had overseen every modification personally, ensuring that the ship's redundancy remained intact. Commander Daehyun visited from Nexus Station. He found Hyunwoo in the observation deck looking down at Earth. They're calling you a hero, Daehyun said. Across the galaxy. The admiral who stopped the Void Swarm. I didn't stop them. We pushed them back. They'll return eventually, and when they do, Hyunwoo smiled slightly. Then we'll fight again. We'll adapt. We'll survive. That's what humans do. He gestured to the fleet visible through the viewport. Council ships, upgraded with human doctrine, practiced maneuvers alongside Earth vessels. Alien crews trained with human instructors. The galaxy was learning. They understand now, Hyunwoo continued, the value of being prepared for failure. The importance of redundancy. The necessity of fighting with everything you have, not just your best weapons. Daehyun nodded. Do you think they'll remember? Or will they fall back into old habits once the immediate threat passes? Some will remember. Some won't, but we'll be here to remind them. To show them that sometimes the best solution isn't the most advanced one. Sometimes it's just the one that works. Far below, Earth turned slowly, blue and green and beautiful. The planet had sent its children to the stars, and those children had proven that humanity belonged among the galactic community. The Council fleet had regrouped at the secondary defensive line, their ships battered but intact. On every bridge, crews watched their displays in stunned silence. The human carrier was still fighting. More than that, it was holding. Captain Ji-hoon couldn't look away from his tactical screen. The Indomitable was surrounded by thousands of enemy vessels, but it refused to die. Explosions blossomed across its hull as bioships struck home, but the carrier kept firing. Its fighters swarmed through enemy formations like angry insects. Its railguns never stopped launching deadly projectiles. "This is impossible," his tactical officer whispered. "They should have been destroyed 10 minutes ago." A communication came through on the priority channel. It was High Magistrate Velthera. "All ships maintain position. Prepare to cover the human vessel's retreat when their systems fail." But Ji-hoon saw something else on his display. The swarm was not advancing. Instead, the bioships were concentrating their attack on the Indomitable, trying to overwhelm it with sheer numbers, and they were failing. "Captain, request permission to return and support the human ship," his weapons officer said. Ji-hoon looked at his crew. Every face showed the same expression: shame. They had retreated while the humans stayed to fight. They had followed orders while a single ship held back an army. "Navigation. Plot a course back to the Indomitable's position," Ji-hoon ordered. "Weapons, prepare all batteries." "Captain, the magistrate ordered us to hold position," his executive officer warned. "The magistrate is not here. I am, and I will not hide behind humans who have more courage than our entire fleet." He opened a fleet-wide channel. "All vessels, this is Captain Ji-hoon of the Luminous Dawn. The human ship is teaching us something about warfare that we forgot. About standing your ground when retreat is easier. About fighting with whatever you have instead of waiting for perfect conditions. I am returning to support them. Any ship that values honor will join me." For a moment, nothing happened. Then, one by one, ships began breaking formation. A Thalorian carrier turned back. 3 Hexaron destroyers followed. Within 2 minutes, half the Council fleet had reversed course, heading back toward the battle. Velthera's voice crackled with anger. "Captain Ji-hoon, you are violating direct orders. Return to formation immediately." "With respect, Magistrate, I am following a higher order, the one that says we do not abandon those who fight for us." Ji-hoon closed the channel. Aboard the Indomitable, Admiral Hyunwoo saw the returning Council ships on his display. He allowed himself a small smile. "It appears we have company. Lieutenant Hana, open channels to all returning vessels." "Channels open, sir." "Council ships, this is Admiral Hyunwoo. Welcome back. We could use the help." Ji-hoon's voice responded. "Admiral, we are at your disposal, but I confess we don't know how to fight the way you do. Our weapons are not working. Our tactics are ineffective." Hyunwoo thought for a moment. "Captain, stop thinking about elegant solutions. Stop relying only on your most advanced systems. Use everything. Your shields failed? Use your hull for ramming. Your energy weapons are ineffective? Do you have secondary kinetic systems? Emergency thrusters that can be weaponized? Backup power cores that can be overloaded as bombs?" There was silence on the other end. Then slowly, "You want us to improvise. I want you to fight like your life depends on it." Because it does. The Council ships that had returned began implementing Hyunwoo's suggestions. The results were crude but effective. A Valkyrie dreadnought, its main weapons useless against adapted bioships, used its emergency maneuvering thrusters to ram an enemy vessel. The impact destroyed both ships, but it proved a point. Physical attacks worked. A Thalorian carrier jury-rigged their escape pod launchers to fire debris and scrap metal at high velocity. The improvised shotgun approach tore through bioship formations. Wing Commander Soman coordinated with alien fighter wings, teaching them human tactics. Forget about elegant maneuvers. Speed and aggression. Hit them fast, hit them hard, except that some of you won't make it back. The alien pilots were horrified by human casualty rates. Soman's fighters had already lost 15% of their number, but they couldn't argue with the results. Human pilots destroyed 3 enemy ships for every one they lost. One Hexaron pilot managed to follow Soman through a particularly vicious engagement. Afterward, shaken but alive, he opened a private channel. "How do you accept those losses? How do you keep fighting when so many die?" Soman's response was blunt. "Because if we don't fight, everyone dies. Losing 15% is terrible. Losing everyone is worse. You do the math." In the Indomitable's engineering section, Chief Tijin was performing miracles. Sections of the ship were open to vacuum. Power conduits were severed. Armor plating hung in strips. But every critical system still had power because Tajin had built in so many redundant pathways. Section 12 is gone, a crew member reported. Reroute through Section 9, Tajin ordered. And shut down life support in the damaged areas. We need that power for weapons. Sir, there are still crew in those sections. Then they need to evacuate now. We save the whole ship or lose everything, move. A Velkari engineer monitoring the human ship from the luminous dawn could not believe what he was hearing. They're deliberately sacrificing crew members in damaged sections to maintain combat effectiveness. This is barbaric. Captain Jihoon heard the comment and responded quietly. It's effective, and it's saving us all. The battle raged for hours. The swarm kept adapting, but the humans and their allies kept changing their tactics. Every time the bioships developed a defense, the humans tried something new. They used different weapons, different attack patterns, different approaches. Lieutenant Hana noticed something on her sensors. Sir, the swarm's adaptation rate is slowing down. I think we're overloading their ability to process threats. Admiral Hyunwoo leaned forward. Explain. They adapt by analyzing threats and developing counters. But we're throwing too many different threats at them. Kinetic weapons, energy weapons when they're not expecting them. Ramming attacks, explosive projectiles, chemical weapons. Every ship is doing something different. Their hive mind can't process it all fast enough. Hyunwoo immediately opened the fleet channel. All ships, listen carefully. The enemy is struggling to adapt to our varied attacks. Do not establish patterns. Do not repeat the same tactic twice. Use every weapon system you have in random order. Confuse them. The council ships now fighting alongside humans implemented this strategy. The battle became chaotic but effective. There was no elegant formation, no coordinated strike pattern, just dozens of ships using every trick they could think of to destroy the enemy. A Thalorian captain discovered his ship's waste recycling system could be pressurized and vented violently. He used it to spray frozen sewage at bioships. It was disgusting and ridiculous, but the organic vessels recoiled from the unexpected attack. A Hexaron destroyer ran out of ammunition for its kinetic weapons. The captain ordered his crew to load anything metal into the launch tubes. Tools, spare parts, even crew personal belongings. Everything became a weapon. The Indomitable continued to take damage. Over 60% of its armor was destroyed or compromised. Multiple sections were open to space. Casualty reports came in steadily. But the ship kept fighting because humans had designed it to fight even when dying. Salmon's fighter took a hit from a bioship weapon. Her cockpit filled with smoke and her controls stopped responding. She fought to keep the craft stable as it spun toward an enemy formation. Wing commander is hit, someone called out. Salmon's voice came back, strained but determined. I'm still flying, and I've got one missile left. Someone give me a target worthy of a grand finale. Salmon, eject, Hyunwoo ordered. Negative, Admiral. I can still do damage. Her damaged fighter accelerated toward a cluster of large bioships. For Earth. The missile launched at point-blank range. The explosion consumed Soman's fighter and 3 enemy vessels. In the CIC, Hyunwoo closed his eyes briefly. Another loss. Another name to remember. But there was no time to mourn. The battle continued. Sir, Hana called out. The swarm is retreating. They're pulling back. Every eye turned to the main display. It was true. The bioships were withdrawing, falling back toward the system edge. The humans and their allies had done the impossible. They had made the Void Swarm retreat. The Void Swarm filled the sensors with impossible numbers. What had seemed like thousands of contacts was actually tens of thousands. Each vessel was organic, grown rather than built, with surfaces that pulsed and writhed like living tissue. They moved with perfect coordination, as if controlled by a single mind. Captain Jihoon stood on the bridge of the luminous dawn, watching the tactical display with growing unease. Tactical analysis? The enemy outnumbers us 4-1, Captain. But our weapons are superior. Our shields can withstand their attacks. We have the advantage. The first wave of Council ships opened fire. Space lit up with brilliant colors as energy weapons unleashed their fury. Plasma lances reached across the void, each one carrying enough power to vaporize a small moon. Particle beams created glowing lines between ships and targets. Quantum disruptors made enemy vessels simply cease to exist, erased from reality by exotic physics. The effect was devastating. Hundreds of swarm vessels exploded or dissolved in the opening salvo. The bioship seemed to have no defense against the concentrated firepower. On the Nexus station, High Magistrate Velthara observed the battle with satisfaction. As predicted, our superior technology is overwhelming them. Maintain the attack. Aboard the Indomitable, Admiral Hyunwoo watched the same scene with a different perspective. Lieutenant Hana, focus sensors on the enemy formation. Look for adaptation patterns. Hana worked her console, filtering through the data. Sir, I'm detecting changes in their hull composition. The rate is extremely fast, much faster than reported in previous engagements. Show me. A detailed scan appeared on the main screen. The swarm vessels that survived the first attack were already changing. Their organic hulls were restructuring, adapting to the weapons being used against them. They learn quickly, Hyunwoo observed. Too quickly. The second wave of Council attacks showed reduced effectiveness. Plasma that had vaporized bioships minutes earlier now only scorched their surfaces. Particle beams that had cut through hulls were now deflected or absorbed. The swarm was adapting in real time. This is impossible, Jihoon muttered. No species can evolve defensive measures this fast. His tactical officer provided the grim answer. They're not one species, Captain. They're a collective organism. Every ship shares information instantly. When one learns, they all learn. The Council fleet continued its assault, but the advantage was evaporating. The swarm pushed forward, closing the distance. Their own weapons began finding targets. Bioships launched organic projectiles that latched onto shields and began eating through them. Others released clouds of acidic particles that corroded ship hulls. All vessels, increase power to shields, Velthara commanded. Rotate weapon frequencies. Do not let them adapt to a single attack pattern. The Council ships complied, but the swarm matched every change. Shield frequencies that worked for 10 minutes became useless. Weapon modifications that proved effective were countered within an hour. The battle became a race between innovation and adaptation, and the swarm was winning. Aboard the Thalorian carrier, alarms blared as bioships penetrated their defensive perimeter. Captain, shields are failing in sections 3 through 7. Enemy organisms are phasing through our barrier. How is that possible? They've learned to match our shield frequency. Recommend immediate withdrawal. Similar reports came from across the fleet. The swarm's adaptation had reached a critical point. Council technology, so advanced and powerful, had become predictable. And predictable meant vulnerable. Velthara made the hardest decision of her long life. All vessels retreat to secondary defensive line. Fall back in good order. The Council fleet began to withdraw, their elegant ships accelerating away from the advancing swarm. The retreat was orderly but unmistakably a defeat. The first engagement had been lost. In the Indomitable CIC, Hyunwoo received the withdrawal order. Following it would mean abandoning the forward position. It would also mean the swarm would advance unchecked toward populated systems. Sir, orders? His executive officer asked. Hyunwoo studied the tactical display. The Council fleet was pulling back, leaving a gap that the swarm would exploit. Unless something blocked their path. Negative on the withdrawal order, Hyunwoo said calmly. All hands prepare for full combat operations. Launch all fighters. Charge all weapons. We're holding this position. The CIC erupted in activity. Orders flew across multiple channels. Throughout the ship, systems that had been on standby roared to full power. Captain Jihoon saw the Indomitable's status change on his display. The human carrier was advancing, not retreating. It was moving to place itself directly between the swarm and the withdrawing Council fleet. They're insane, his tactical officer said. One ship against that entire force? They'll be destroyed in minutes. Jihoon opened a channel to the human vessel. Human ship, this is Captain Jihoon. You must withdraw. You cannot win this fight alone. Admiral Hyunwoo's voice came back steady and calm. Captain, thank you for your concern. We're not trying to win. We're buying you time. Indomitable out. The channel closed. Jihoon stared at his display, torn between admiration and horror. The humans were committing suicide to save the fleet that had mocked them. Captain, his navigation officer said quietly, should we return to support them? Jihoon looked at his crew. He thought about honor, duty, and the debt that was being created. But orders were orders. Maintain course, he said, the words tasting like ash. We follow the magistrate's commands. The luminous dawn continued its retreat along with the rest of the Council fleet. The Indomitable completed its positioning. 3 kilometers of metal and machinery, alone against an approaching tide of bioships that numbered in the tens of thousands. Wing Commander Soman sat in her fighter cockpit, feeling the vibration as the launch catapult charged. Around her, hundreds of other pilots did the same. The fighter bay was organized chaos, crews making final checks on weapons and systems. All wings, this is Soman. Today we show them what humans can do. Remember your training. Trust your instincts. And if you get a shot, take it. Launch in 3, 2, 1. Go, the catapults fired. Fighters shot out of the Indomitable's bays like bullets from a gun. Within 60 seconds, over 300 small craft were in space, forming up into attack formations. The swarm noticed the approaching fighters but seemed unconcerned. These small craft looked even more primitive than the carrier that launched them. Simple chemical thrusters, kinetic weapons. No shields at all. They would be easy prey. The first wave of human fighters hit the swarm line at full speed. Their weapons opened fire, railguns launching solid tungsten rounds at a significant fraction of light speed. The bioships, their hulls adapted to absorb and deflect energy weapons, had no defense against solid matter moving at relativistic velocities. Tungsten rounds punched through organic hulls like paper. Bioships that had shrugged off plasma lances exploded when kinetic rounds hit their internal structures. The swarm's perfect adaptation meant nothing against an attack type they hadn't encountered. On the Indomitable, Hyunwoo watched the fighter attack with satisfaction. Excellent. Chief Taejin, prepare to fire main batteries. Batteries ready, Admiral. Targets locked. Fire. The carrier's railguns opened up. Massive projectiles, each weighing several tons, launched from magnetic accelerators. They reached speeds that turned them into devastating kinetic weapons. Where they hit, bioships simply disintegrated from the massive energy transfer. Lieutenant Hana monitored the swarm's response. Sir, they're trying to adapt, but they're confused. Their defense systems keep preparing for energy weapons, then get hit by solid matter. They can't figure out what we're doing. That's because we're not doing one thing, Hyunwoo explained. We're using dozens of different weapon types, different attack patterns, different speeds and trajectories. There's too much variation for them to adapt quickly. A bioship got through the fighter screen and slammed into the Indomitable's hull. The organic vessel latched on, trying to burrow through. Instead of shields stopping it, meters of solid armor absorbed the impact. The bioship's acidic secretions began eating through the outer plating. In the damage control center, alarms indicated the breach. Teams immediately deployed, carrying equipment that looked absurdly low-tech. They sealed the damaged section, pumped it full of neutralizing foam, and literally cut the bioship off the hull with plasma torches. Chief Taejin watched the repair work with approval. Redundancy is beautiful, people. Section damaged but contained. Backup systems maintaining full function. More bioships hit the carrier. Each impact damaged armor, but there was always more armor beneath. The Indomitable was designed to take punishment. Every system had backups. Every critical area had multiple access routes. The ship could lose half its mass and still function. The swarm began to recognize a problem. These humans fought differently than any enemy they had encountered. There was no elegant technology to adapt to, just brutal, simple effectiveness, kinetic weapons, explosive warheads, physical armor, redundant systems, and a crew that refused to stop fighting. The alert came at dawn, station time. Every sensor in the threshold system registered the new arrival. Captain Ji-hoon was on the bridge of the luminous dawn when his sensor officer called out, "Contact, new vessel dropping out of faster-than-light travel." Designating as the human contribution, Ji-hoon pulled up the sensor readings on his display. His eyes widened slightly. The ship was massive, nearly 3 kilometers from bow to stern. But as the detailed scans came in, his surprise turned to confusion. "This cannot be correct," he muttered. "Run the scan again." The sensor officer complied, but the results remained the same. The human supercarrier was built from titanium alloys and carbon composites, basic materials that any advanced species had abandoned centuries ago. The power signature showed conventional fusion reactors, not exotic matter cores. The propulsion system used simple plasma drives. There are no shield generators, the tactical officer reported. The vessel is protected by physical armor alone. Multiple layers, but still just metal. Ji-hoon opened a channel to other fleet commanders. Within minutes, a private discussion group had formed, including captains from the Thalorian, Hexaran and Velkari vessels. Have you seen the human ship? Someone asked. It looks like something from a museum, another replied. I'm detecting kinetic weapon systems. Railguns, who uses railguns anymore? Laughter echoed across the private channel. Jihoon felt uncomfortable participating, but also couldn't deny the absurdity of the situation. The humans had brought a vessel that belonged in the history archives, not a modern fleet engagement. I propose a wager, a Thalorian captain announced. How long will it survive once the fighting starts? I say 5 minutes. Optimistic, someone else chimed in. I say 3 minutes. Jihoon closed the channel without placing a bet. Something bothered him about the whole situation, though he couldn't identify what. Aboard the indomitable Admiral Hyunwoo stood in the Combat Information Center. The room was crowded with crew members at their stations, monitoring hundreds of displays. Unlike the elegant automated bridges of council ships, the Indomitable's CIC was loud and busy. People called out status reports. Officers moved between stations with physical clipboards. Everything felt manual and hands-on. Sir, we're receiving docking instructions from Nexus Station, the communications officer reported. They want us to park in the reserve formation. Grid Section 7. Acknowledge and comply, Hyunwoo replied calmly. Wing Commander Soman entered the CIC, her flight suit already on despite the battle being days away. Admiral, the wing commanders are requesting permission to begin combat drills. Granted. But keep the exercises within our designated area. No need to alarm our allies with our flight patterns. Soman grinned. They're already alarmed just looking at us, sir. Chief Engineer Tajan approached, wiping grease from his hands. He was a broad-shouldered man with a permanent scowl. Engineering reports all systems green. The armor plating is secure. Backup systems are online. Redundant power routing is ready. Crew morale? Hyunwoo asked. They know what people are saying about us, Tajan said. The mockery. But they're ready to prove everyone wrong. At her sensor station, Lieutenant Hana monitored the fleet composition. She was young, barely 25, and this was her first major deployment. The scale of the Council fleet was intimidating. Each of their capital ships possessed firepower that could destroy cities. Their technology was so advanced it seemed like magic. Lieutenant, a voice said beside her. She jumped slightly, then relaxed when she saw it was Admiral Hyunwoo. Sir, the Council ships are incredible. They are, Hyunwoo agreed. Elegant, powerful, efficient. And we're different, Hyunwoo finished. We're built on different principles. They optimize for perfection. We prepare for everything going wrong. Outside the ship, Council crews watched the human vessel with a mixture of amusement and pity. The Indomitable began what appeared to be pre-combat preparations, but everything looked ancient to alien eyes. Hundreds of small craft were moved into launch positions along the carrier's flanks. Railgun batteries rotated on visible mechanical turrets, each one controlled by hydraulic systems. Armor shutters closed over critical areas, thick slabs of metal sliding into place with almost medieval simplicity. They're checking systems manually, one observer noted, with actual crew members physically inspecting equipment. How do they expect to react to threats if everything requires manual verification? Another asked. What the aliens didn't see were the advantages of this approach. Human crew members knew every system intimately. They could repair damage with tools and spare parts instead of waiting for automated systems to diagnose problems. They could adapt and improvise in ways that perfectly tuned automated systems could not. In the fighter bay, Soman gathered her wing commanders for a briefing. The bay was enormous, packed with hundreds of small craft. Each fighter was angular and brutal-looking, built for speed and carrying capacity rather than elegance. Listen up, Soman began. I know what the fleet thinks of us, primitive, outdated, obsolete. Let them think that. When the shooting starts, we'll show them what human pilots can do. Those bioships adapt to energy weapons, one pilot pointed out. What makes our kinetics any better? Because they're not expecting us, Soman replied. The swarm has been fighting council ships for months. Energy shields, plasma weapons, particle beams. They've adapted to all of it, but solid projectiles at relativistic speeds? Old-fashioned explosives. They won't know what hit them. Back in the CIC, Hyunwoo received a message from Commander Daehyun at Nexus Station. The text was brief. Council expects us to fail. Good luck proving them wrong. Hyunwoo smiled slightly and deleted the message. He pulled up a three-dimensional display of the Indomitable. The ship's design was deliberately redundant. Every critical system had backups, and those backups had backups. Power could be rerouted through dozens of different paths. If one section was destroyed, others would continue functioning. The Council built ships that couldn't fail. Humans built ships that could take incredible damage and keep fighting. "Sir," Lieutenant Hana called out, "I'm picking up movement at the system edge. Multiple contacts. It's them." The swarm, the CIC fell silent. Every eye turned to the main display. At the very edge of sensor range, red contacts began appearing. Dozens at first, then hundreds, then thousands. The void swarm had arrived. Hyunwoo's expression remained calm. "All hands, battle stations. This is not a drill. Prepare for combat operations." Throughout the ship, alarms sounded. Crew members rushed to their positions. In the fighter bays, pilots climbed into their cockpits. In engineering, Tajin's teams verified that every backup system was ready. In the weapons sections, gunners loaded shells into the railguns, each projectile weighing several tons. Captain Ji-hoon watched from the luminous dawn as the human carrier came to full alert. The ship looked clumsy and slow compared to the graceful council vessels. But there was something about it, something solid and unyielding that made him pause. "All ships form up," Velthara's voice echoed across the fleet channel. "First wave vessels, prepare to engage. Reserve line, hold position." The council fleet moved forward with precision, their advanced drives allowing for perfect coordination. The Indomitable remained behind, alone in the reserve position. "They're leaving us behind," Hana observed. "As expected," Hyunwoo replied. "We'll have our moment, patience." Soman appeared on his command screen. "Admiral, my pilots are ready. Give us the word." "Not yet, Commander. Let the Council make first contact. We'll see how the swarm responds." The massive fleet advanced toward the approaching enemy. Energy weapons began charging. Shields reached maximum power. Every Council ship was a masterpiece of technology, ready to unleash devastating force. In the Indomitable's CIC, Hyunwoo watched and waited. His crew was tense but disciplined. They trusted him, and he would not waste that trust. "Here we go," he said quietly. "Remember your training. Remember why we're here." The gap between the fleets closed. The battle for the threshold system was about to begin. The Nexus station floated in the darkness of space, its massive structure glowing with the light of 1,000 windows. Ships from across the galaxy docked at its ports, bringing representatives from every corner of known space. Today was different from other days. Today, the Galactic Council faced a threat that could destroy them all. Commander Dae-hyun stood in the observation deck, watching the stars through the reinforced glass. His uniform was crisp and clean, the insignia of Earth's Navy visible on his shoulder. He had been at the Nexus station for 3 weeks now, attending endless meetings and briefings. Most of the time, the other species barely acknowledged his presence. The door behind him opened, and Ambassador Minji walked in. She looked tired, her eyes showing the strain of diplomatic work. "They're ready for us," she said quietly. "The emergency session is about to begin." Daehyun nodded and followed her through the gleaming corridors of the station. Other delegates passed them by, their forms strange and alien. Some walked on multiple legs, others floated through the air. A few glanced at the humans with barely concealed contempt. The council chamber was enormous, a circular room with seats arranged in rising tiers. At the center stood High Magistrate Velthara, a being of living crystal that refracted light into rainbow patterns. Her voice echoed through the chamber without need for speakers. "The situation grows dire," Velthara announced. "The void swarm has consumed the Calaris system. 3 billion souls lost. They move toward our territories now, and our projections show they will reach the outer colonies within 2 months." Holographic displays appeared above the chamber floor, showing the enemy's advance. The void swarm looked like a disease spreading across the map, red tendrils reaching toward populated systems. A tall insectoid delegate rose from his seat. "Our fleets are powerful, but the swarm adapts to our weapons. Energy shields become useless within hours of engagement. Plasma weapons lose effectiveness after the first wave. What strategy do you propose, High Magistrate?" Velthara's crystalline form pulsed with light. "We must gather every available warship, a combined fleet of unprecedented size. We will meet them at the threshold system and stop their advance there." One by one, the council members pledged their forces. The Velkari promised 20 dreadnoughts. The Thalorians offered their carrier groups. The Hexaran Collective committed their destroyer squadrons. Each announcement was met with approving sounds from the assembled delegates. Ambassador Minji stood up. Earth wishes to contribute to the defense fleet. The chamber fell silent. Then, quietly at first, some delegates began to laugh. The sound grew louder, more mocking. The humans? A Thalorian admiral spoke, his voice dripping with amusement. What could your primitive world possibly offer? Minji kept her composure. We offer one supercarrier, fully crewed and equipped, the HSC Indomitable. More laughter erupted. A holographic display appeared, showing Earth's technology assessments. The numbers were damning. Human ships used chemical propulsion when others had quantum drives. Human weapons fired solid projectiles when others used directed energy. Human vessels relied on physical armor when others had energy shields. You are 200 years behind Council standards, Velthera stated. It was not said cruelly, but as a simple fact. Your ship lacks quantum phase shielding. It has no exotic matter reactor. It cannot even generate a basic deflector field. The Thalorian admiral continued his mockery. A metal box floating in space. That is what you bring us. How do you expect it to survive even 1 minute of modern combat? Daehyun's jaw tightened, but he remained silent. He had expected this reaction. Minji spoke calmly. We understand your concerns, but we ask that you judge our contribution by its performance, not by your initial assessment. Velthera consulted with other council members. The discussion took several minutes. Finally, she turned back to the humans. Very well. We accept your offer. Every ship helps, even those that are less advanced. She paused, then added, Your vessel will be assigned to the reserve line. Daehyun knew what that meant. The reserve line was the last position, the one that would only see action if the main fleet failed. It was a death sentence dressed up as an assignment. They would be expected to buy time for evacuations, nothing more. We accept, he said simply. After the session ended, Daehyun and Minji walked back through the station. Other delegates passed them, some still chuckling about the human contribution. They think we're fools, Minji said once they were alone. Let them think that, Daehyun replied. Admiral Hyunwoo and his crew will show them the truth. Do you really believe one carrier can make a difference? Daehyun stopped and looked at her. I've seen what human engineering can do. I've seen what our people accomplish when everyone counts us out. Yes, I believe. Back in their quarters, Daehyun sent an encrypted message to Earth. The reply came hours later, a simple confirmation. The Indomitable was already on its way, traveling through the void at maximum speed. Days passed. The Council fleet began to gather at the threshold system. Massive warships appeared one by one, each more impressive than the last. The Velkari, dreadnoughts, were elegant vessels of flowing metal and contained energy. The Thalorian carriers bristled with weapons arrays that could vaporize planets. The Hexaran destroyers moved with precise coordination, their hulls shimmering with active camouflage. Daehyun received updates from Admiral Hyunwoo. The Indomitable was 3 days out. The crew was ready. Systems were checked and rechecked. Everything was proceeding according to plan. On the station, Captain Jihoon of the Velkari dreadnought Luminous Dawn invited Daehyun for a private meeting. The Velkari officer was polite but clearly curious. I mean no offense, Jihoon said, but I must ask, why send a ship you know is outmatched? Is it pride? Honor? Daehyun considered the question. It's neither. It's necessity. When something threatens to destroy everything, you fight with whatever you have. You don't wait until you have the perfect weapon. You use what's available and you make it work. Jihoon nodded slowly, though his expression suggested he didn't truly understand. The final day before the Indomitable's arrival, Velthera summoned all military commanders for a tactical briefing. The Void Swarm's composition was analyzed in detail. Their ships were biological, grown rather than built. They adapted rapidly to any threat, evolving new defenses within hours. Standard engagement protocols will fail, Velthera explained. We must hit them with overwhelming force in the first wave, before they can adapt. Daehyun listened but said nothing. He had read the reports. He knew the Council's plan had flaws, but he also knew they wouldn't listen to him. Not yet. That night, alone in his quarters, he looked at a photo of Earth, blue and beautiful, floating in the darkness. Humanity had fought its way up from stone tools to starships. They had survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and disasters. They were survivors. Tomorrow, the indomitable would arrive. Tomorrow, the galaxy would begin to learn what humanity really was.